They thought I'd leave quietly. They thought after 25 years of loyalty, I would accept a polite severance, clear out my desk, and disappear into corporate irrelevance. But the moment Marcus signed my termination letter, he had no idea he just triggered a legal bomb buried deep inside contracts written decades ago, a bomb powerful enough to destroy the billion-dollar empire he believed was his alone. The second his pen left that paper, he'd already lost everything. He just didn't know it yet. My name is Maddie, and for 25 years, that's what everyone at Averton Dynamics called me. Chief Engineer. Fixer. The person they dragged into every crisis when failure wasn't an option. That Tuesday morning began like any other. I arrived at 7:30 a.m. sharp, black coffee in hand, already mapping solutions for a supply chain breakdown threatening our Asian markets. I should have noticed the signs. Conversation stopping mid-sentence when I walked past. Junior engineers suddenly studying their shoes. My assistant Sarah avoiding my eyes when she mentioned an emergency board meeting. At 9:45, Marcus Elroy's secretary called me to the executive conference room. That wasn't unusual. As chief engineer, I'd been Marcus's right hand through 3 recessions, 2 hostile takeover attempts, and more product launches than I could count. I'd taken his ambition and turned it into 42 patents worth over $1 billion. Still, the boardroom felt wrong that morning. Too quiet. Too formal. Marcus sat at the head of the table, silver hair perfectly styled, his cold blue eyes refusing to meet mine. Every board member was there, 12 people I'd briefed hundreds of times, now wearing expressions that ranged from discomfort to barely concealed anticipation. Maddie, please sit, Marcus said, gesturing to the chair across from him. The termination seat. I'd watched enough people occupy it to recognize it instantly. My heart pounded, but I kept my face neutral. 25 years of corporate survival had taught me never to show weakness in that room. We need to discuss restructuring. Marcus began, shuffling papers he clearly hadn't read. The board believes Averton needs fresh perspectives in technical leadership. Younger voices. People who truly understand digital transformation. Younger voices. The words hung in the air like a verdict. At 46, I had given this company my youth, my marriage, my health. I had missed birthdays, anniversaries, and my mother's last Christmas, all in service of Averton's success. You're firing me, I said, not asking, stating a fact. Marcus tightened his jaw and nodded. We're offering a generous severance. 6 months' salary, continued health benefits through the end of the year. And who's replacing me? I asked. The door opened before he could answer. She walked in with the confidence of someone who believed the room already belonged to her. Sierra. Marcus's 24-year-old niece. Fresh MBA. Minimal experience. Maximum entitlement. Her designer suit probably cost more than most engineers' monthly rent, and her smile was bright, careless, unearned. Hi, Maddie, she said cheerfully. I'm so excited to learn from your transition notes. Uncle Marcus says you documented everything beautifully. Uncle Marcus. I'd worked beside that man for 25 years. He'd never invited me to a family dinner, never acknowledged the nights I slept on my office couch to save his company. Sierra has revolutionary ideas, Marcus said proudly. Blockchain integration. AI-driven manufacturing. I looked closer. Her phone was propped against her bag. She was live streaming. Recording my termination for her followers. I could already imagine the caption, Day 1 as Chief Innovation Officer. The patents, I said quietly. Marcus waved his hand dismissively. All company property. Your contract is quite clear. I almost smiled, because Marcus Elroy, in all his arrogance, had forgotten about a single clause buried deep inside my original employment agreement from 25 years earlier, a clause I'd insisted on when I was young, cautious, and far more perceptive than he'd ever realized. A clause stating that if I were terminated without cause, all operational licensing rights for the patents I developed would automatically revert to me. He'd signed it without reading, confident he'd never need to let me go. Of course, I said calmly, taking the termination papers. Everything is clear. I signed my name, Maddie Graves, slowly and deliberately. We'll need your badge and company devices, Marcus said, already looking past me. I placed them on the table. 25 years reduced to 2 objects. Behind me, Sierra was taking selfies with the city skyline, already planning how she'd redecorate my office. No hard feelings, Marcus said as I reached the door. It's just business. I turned and met his eyes. You're right, Marcus. It's just business. The door closed softly behind me. The drive home felt unreal, muscle memory guiding me while my mind traveled backward through the years. I remembered my son's 8th birthday, the emergency call from Frankfurt at 3:15 a.m., the gift I left on the counter with a note before spending 3 days saving millions in temperature-sensitive inventory. When I finally made it home, the party was over. He'd saved me a slice of cake wrapped in dinosaur napkins. It's okay, Mom, he'd said. Dad says you had to save the company. How many times had I done exactly that? Singapore. Tokyo. Berlin. Every crisis, every sacrifice. The company survived. My marriage didn't. I unlocked my quiet, empty house and poured myself a drink. Then I opened my personal laptop, the one that held everything, contracts, emails, amendments, including Amendment 19.3. The clause was simple. Ironclad. Termination without cause meant the patents reverted to me. I leaned back and exhaled for the first time in years. They thought they'd ended my career. What they'd really done was hand me the keys to their empire. And this was only the beginning. The collapse didn't happen all at once. It started with confusion, then denial, then panic. I watched it unfold from my living room, coffee in hand, as if I were observing a controlled demolition from a safe distance. Sierra's first week as Chief Innovation Officer was a masterclass in confidence without competence. She documented everything on social media, live streaming meetings, posting selfies from my former office, explaining to her followers how she was revolutionizing manufacturing. Meanwhile, my phone buzzed non-stop. Engineers I'd worked with for decades were texting in disbelief. Partners from Berlin, Tokyo, and Singapore were asking the same question, quietly at first, then urgently. Maddie, is it true you're gone? Who's managing the systems? Sierra had told the engineering team they needed to sunset legacy thinking. She asked why semiconductor fabrication couldn't be outsourced to a startup she followed on Instagram. She suggested replacing patent-protected systems with open-source solutions because transparency builds trust. Marcus stood by her, insisting this was what innovation looked like. By the end of week 1, 3 senior engineers had resigned. By the end of week 2, production delays were stacking up, partners were furious, and the stock price had begun to slide. That was when I made my move. At exactly midnight on a Sunday, my attorney sent the notice. A single email, calm, precise, devastating. Notice of license revocation per employment agreement amendment 19.3, effective immediately. All operational licensing rights for 42 patents revert to Maddie Graves. Continued use without authorization constitutes intellectual property infringement. No threats. No emotion. Just the law. By Monday morning, the machines stopped. In Frankfurt, production lines froze mid-cycle, every screen displaying the same error message. License expired. Contact patent holder. In Singapore, the supply chain optimization system went dark, paralyzing logistics across 3 countries. In Tokyo, quality assurance protocols shut down during a critical production run, trapping millions of units in limbo. Averton Dynamics didn't just slow down. It stopped. My phone stayed silent by choice, but the messages piled up. Sarah texted first. Maddie, all hell is breaking loose. Marcus is screaming for legal. Sierra's crying in the bathroom. Then Berlin. Then Tokyo. Then Deutsche Bank. We need to speak with you directly, they said. This integration can't continue without the architect. By 10 a.m., an emergency board meeting had been called. Sarah accidentally left her phone connected to the conference room audio, and I listened as panic filled the room. What do you mean the patents aren't ours? Marcus shouted. Legal explained Amendment 19.3. The room went silent. Then get her permission, Marcus demanded. She's not answering, legal replied. Sierra's voice cut in, confused and small. Can't we just make new patents? That silence was louder than any shouting. By noon, the news broke. Manufacturing giant faces patent crisis after firing key engineer. The stock dropped 12% in an hour. By the end of the day, it was down 25%. Social media had a field day. Sierra's livestream clips went viral, not as inspiration, but as comedy. Engineers everywhere shared the same conclusion. Averton had fired the wrong person. The board reached out through lawyers, asking for a meeting, calling it a misunderstanding. I declined. I wasn't interested in explanations. I was interested in consequences. By Wednesday, partners were abandoning ship. They weren't asking if I would help. They were asking how fast I could. Graves' technical solutions had been incorporated quietly the week before. By Friday, we'd signed our first major contracts. By the following Monday, half of Averton's engineering department had resigned to join me. The board finally removed Marcus, terminating him without cause. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Sierra was fired the same day. Her final post blamed ageism, sexism, and toxic corporate culture. The comments were merciless. 6 months later, Averton Dynamics filed for bankruptcy. The empire Marcus believed was his legacy collapsed under the weight of arrogance and nepotism. My company grew faster than I'd ever imagined, built on the same principles I'd given Averton for free for 25 years. Respect expertise. Protect your people. Make loyalty a two-way contract. One evening, as I left my office at 5 p.m. sharp, something I'd never done before, my son texted me. Proud of you, Mom. You finally chose yourself. I smiled, locked the door, and walked into a future that was finally mine. They thought they were firing an aging engineer. Instead, they ignited 25 years of preparation. They lost their empire because they forgot one simple truth. Some people aren't replaceable. And when you treat loyalty like it's disposable, eventually, the bill comes due. Thank you for listening to this story. If it resonated with you, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share your own experiences with workplace betrayal. Your stories help shape what we tell next.